What is going on, everybody? Today I will be previewing the 2024 college football schedule for Clemson. I will go through every game on their schedule and I will predict which games on the schedule I think they will win, and I will also predict which games on the schedule I think they will lose. But before we preview their schedule, let me remind you guys to like the video and also subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. And if you guys love college football, then you'll love this channel, because we upload a ton of college football content and we basically cover everything on this channel, so definitely consider subscribing. And also consider joining my Discord server down in the description below. But without further ado, let's get into the video. Last season, Clemson finished with a 9-4 record. It was actually their worst finish to a season since 2010. From 2011 to 2022, Clemson was a consistently dominant team, and they actually had a double-digit win season during that time period every single season. But in 2023, they only won 9 games. Don't get me wrong, it still was a solid season, but the expectation was set pretty high for Clemson in 2023, as they started the season ranked in the top 10. But we quickly found out that Clemson was a bit overhyped and they lost to Duke by double digits. But 2024 is a new year for Dabo Swinney and the Clemson Tigers, and Dabo Swinney has another chance to prove the haters wrong. Dabo Swinney continues to refuse to use the transfer portal, but this Clemson team should still be a top contender for the ACC in 2024. They returned 79% of offensive production, which is top 20 in the country. The offense held them back last season, so we will have to see Cade Klubnik and that Clemson offense level up if Clemson wants to win the ACC. The defense loses a lot of talent, but I think I can trust the defense for this Clemson team, and they are very deep on defensive talent. Clemson still does a pretty good job in recruiting, and some coaches just prefer high school talent. We'll see if Clemson continues to head downhill, or if Dabo Swinney can prove the haters wrong, because next season should be a big season for Clemson. So we will see if Clemson has what it takes to win the ACC again. But anyways, let's get into predicting their schedule. And they open the season playing a neutral site game against Georgia. And that game will be played in Atlanta, Georgia. So Georgia will probably have the home field advantage in that game. And this is one of the biggest games of the next college football season. Could you imagine the headlines if Clemson actually upset Georgia in Atlanta? That would make the Clemson Tigers look very dangerous again. Don't get me wrong, they've been solid in the 2020s, but they dominated near the end of the 2010s. And beating Georgia could give them that dominant aura back. Do I think Clemson will beat Georgia? No, I do not think Clemson beats Georgia. I made a video yesterday talking about this Georgia team, and some of you may know that I am very high on Georgia, as most people should be. And I think Georgia is the next great dynasty in college football, with Kirby Smart leading the way. I expect this to be a close game in the first half, but Carson Beck and that Georgia offense will turn up in the second half and win this game by double digits, because this Georgia team just has way too much talent. So I have Clemson losing their first game of the season and moving to 0-1 on the season. The next game for Clemson will be at home against App State. App State is a team you should not take lightly. They're actually a very consistently good group of 5 team, and they have been pretty competitive or beaten Power 5 teams before joining the FBS and since joining the FBS. App State is one of the more underrated teams in college football. They are always consistent and really competitive, and I'm pretty high on this App State team heading into next season. App State kept their head coach, coordinators, and their star quarterback Joey Aguilera. The defense will be solid, and I expect this team to most likely win the Sun Belt Conference. I do think Clemson will bounce back from their loss against Georgia, so I do have Clemson beating App State at home and moving to 1-1 on the season, but this could be a game that has Clemson on upset alert. Following their game against App State, they will have a bye week, and then they play at home against NC State. NC State has actually beaten Clemson twice in the past 3 seasons, and I expect NC State to be very good in 2024. I think Grayson McCall is an underrated addition at quarterback. They brought in Noah Rogers and Wesley Grimes at receiver, and they also brought in Jordan Waters at running back. The offense should be really solid, and I can trust the defense for NC State. And I think I am probably higher on NC State than most people are, but I would not be surprised if NC State won double-digit games in 2024. NC State has won 8 or more games the past 4 seasons, and they have been consistently good, but they actually haven't won 10 or more games since 2002. And 2002 is actually NC State's only double-digit win season in school history, which is crazy to think about. I do think 2024 could be a step up for NC State with Grayson McCall at quarterback. And I like NC State to beat Clemson on the road, so I have Clemson losing this game and moving to 1-2 on the season. The next game for Clemson will be at home against Stanford. Stanford will be playing their first season in the ACC, and I expect Stanford to be one of the worst teams in the ACC. The defense is very bad, and they haven't made any big moves in the transfer portal. The offense could be solid with Ashton Daniels and Alik Iamanda returning, but I expect Stanford to really struggle in year 1 playing in the ACC because this Stanford team hasn't been that good in a long time, and they just aren't the same team anymore. I definitely have Clemson winning this game and move it to 2-2 on the season. The next game for Clemson will be on the road against Florida State. Last season, Florida State beat Clemson in overtime. It was definitely one of the best games from last season, so it will be interesting to see these two teams play again, but this time in Tallahassee. I trust Mike Norvell in Florida State. Mike Norvell continues to use the transfer portal at a very high level, and he also recruits pretty well. And I could see this team winning double-digit games yet again in 2024. DJ Uiagalelei is going to be an interesting addition at quarterback, but let's not forget Mike Norvell helped elevate Jordan Travis, and I expect him to do the same thing with DJU at quarterback. I am pretty high on Florida State, and I think they will have a very good team again, so I have Clemson losing on the road to Florida State and moving to 2-3 on the season. The next game for Clemson will be on the road against Wake Forest. Wake Forest actually finished last in the ACC last season. They really struggled at the quarterback position, and heading into next season, this team has a bunch of question marks. They lost their top receiver and many other players to the transfer portal, but if anybody can turn it around for this team, then it could be Dave Clawson, because he has a pretty successful track record as a head coach. And last season was actually Wake Forest's first losing season since 2015 under Dave Clawson. I know that they had a 4-5 record for the 2020 season, but I don't really count that. But other than that, Wake Forest has consistently won 7 or more games. But I am still not very high on Wake Forest heading into 2024, so I have Clemson beating Wake Forest and moving to 3-3 on the season. The next game for Clemson will be at home against Virginia. Virginia went 3-9 last season, but they did actually show some spark in wins against Duke and North Carolina, and they also played in 5 one-possession losses. They are top 5 in the country for return in production, and the only big piece that they lost was Malik Washington at wide receiver. That will definitely hurt, but I think Virginia could be a sleeper team to make a bowl game. They did a pretty solid job in the transfer portal, and I do think they will be a bit better next season. I still do think this game should be a mismatch, so I do have Clemson beating Virginia at home and move it to 4-3 on the season. But following their game against Virginia, Clemson will have a bye week and then they play at home against Louisville. This is a 50-50 game to me. But I had Clemson actually losing to NC State after a bye week, so I really don't see them losing to Louisville as well after a bye week. I'm not as high in Louisville as most people are. I think the offense is kind of lackluster, and Tyler Shuck is a very injury-prone quarterback. Don't get me wrong, the defense might actually be the ACC's best, but if Louisville wants to win the ACC, they will have to find a way to score points. And it starts at the quarterback position because they need a lot better of a passing attack. I felt like Louisville was overrated last season. They avoided Clemson and Florida State in the regular season. They played an injured Duke team and they played NC State before NC State got hot. Louisville had a big win against Notre Dame, which was impressive, but that was basically Louisville's Super Bowl. And other than that game, this team really didn't impress me last season. I expect Louisville to be good, but they aren't my favorite out of the ACC in 2024. And honestly, Clemson isn't either, but I do think Clemson will win a close game at home against Louisville, so I have Clemson moving to 5-3 on the season. The next game for Clemson will be on the road against Virginia Tech. This could be a trap game for Clemson, playing on the road against a team that I think could really be a surprise team. This is basically going to be Virginia Tech's Super Bowl, and I'm very 50-50 on this game, but Virginia Tech is first in the country for return in production, and they have a lot of momentum heading into next season after going 5-2 in their final 7 games last season and dominating Tulane in their bowl game by 21 points. I really trust the trend with this Virginia Tech team. I like Kyron Jones to level up even more at quarterback, and the defense for Virginia Tech will continue to get better and the defense should be solid. And I think Virginia Tech actually pulls off an upset against Clemson at home with a great home field advantage, so I have Clemson moving to 5-4 on the season. The next game for Clemson will be on the road against Pitt. Pitt's offense could potentially level up with new offensive coordinator Cade Bell and the new quarterback addition of Eli Holston. There's a lot of room to grow on offense, but they did finish last in the ACC for points per game in 2023, and I'm not very high on Pitt because they were not that great last season, and there's just way too much to clean up on offense, and I think Clemson will bounce back and beat Pitt on the road, so I have Clemson moving to 6-4 on this season. The next game for Clemson will be against FCS opponent the Citadel. And obviously this is just the cupcake game thrown on the schedule for Clemson. And these games are kind of annoying, but it's whatever. And obviously Clemson will win this game very easily. So I definitely have Clemson move it to 7-4 on the season. And there's nothing much to say about this game. And of course, the last game of the season will be at home against South Carolina. And this could be a potential loss for Clemson. South Carolina is still trying to figure things out with Shane Beamer as head coach after they took a step down in 2023. South Carolina could be better in 2024 as they do have a top 4 SEC transfer portal class, and they possibly have an underrated quarterback with Lenore Sellers. South Carolina has kind of been a forgotten about team after an underwhelming 5-7 season, but South Carolina is also a team to keep an eye on. They could potentially be better with a lot of the talent that they are bringing in, and maybe last season was a fluke. But I do think Clemson will beat South Carolina at home, so I have Clemson finishing the season with a 5-3 conference record and an 8-4 overall record. And obviously, I am not very high on Clemson. I think other teams in the ACC are starting to become more relevant, and I think Dabo Swinney is struggling to adapt to the new landscape of college football. They should definitely be a solid team that contends for an ACC championship, but personally, they're just not my favorite team out of the ACC right now. I think that the new top dog in the ACC may just be Florida State. And don't forget, there's other teams on the rise like Miami and Louisville. NC State is also a team that is due to have a breakout season with Grayson McCall at quarterback, at least in my opinion. And Virginia Tech is a big sleeper team. The ACC is wide open, and I don't know where Clemson fits in the conversation. And the schedule is pretty difficult, so I'm not buying it with Dabo Swinney and the Clemson Tigers anymore. I mean, maybe they prove me wrong, but I have to see it on the field first. And if they do win the ACC next season, then I'll make sure I give this team the respect that they deserve. But anyways, you guys let me know how many games you think Clemson will win in 2024 down in the comments below. But that is going to do it for the video. Let me remind you guys to like the video and also subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. And if you guys love college football, then you'll love this channel, because we upload a ton of college football content and we basically cover everything on this channel. So definitely consider subscribing, and also consider joining my Discord server down in the description below. But that is going to do it, guys, and peace out.